There's a saying I've always liked: buy the ticket, take the ride. At 21, that can be terrible financial advice. At 51, I think it means something completely different. And tonight we're going to talk about it. Let's face it, by the time you're 40 or so, you've pretty much been trained in life to be responsible. At least the responsible people have been trained that way, right? At 51, I got this down. I spent more than my share of time in the office. Work first, pay the bills, save your money, invest wisely, take care of everybody, finish the project, do what it takes to get the job done. And none of these are wrong. But the problem that we face is there's always a responsible reason to say no. If you've ever watched the movie Up, one of the themes of the movie is adventure is out there. Making time to chase that adventure is one of life's great challenges. Because we've always got a reason not to do it, don't we? I can't take the trip because work is busy. And that's the worst one for me. And my brother, I just heard him the other day say the exact same thing. I haven't taken a vacation in I don't know how many years because I just can't get away from work. I did the same thing. My honeymoon was in 2018. In the 10 years or so before that, I hadn't taken a vacation of any real substance that was just for me. I did plenty of stuff with the kids, but a vacation that was just me and my wife. She's my wife now. She wasn't necessarily back then, but just the two of us was something that just didn't happen. And maybe we just don't take it because, the money can be invested or we don't have that savings built up yet. Or we don't take off Friday because something might happen. And God forbid you take off a Monday. Or maybe you don't start the hobby because you don't have the time. And I'm facing that right now with a little project that I've got in the back of my mind to do a little woodworking project for the 4-H kids. Do I really have the time to invest in it? And maybe it's just one of those things that you got to do it, Take the ride. Buy the ticket, take the ride. Or you don't go this year because next year will be easier. And it all kind of snowballs until you finally realize, or you ask yourself the question, when does life actually get easier? When do I actually have time to do this? Because every time one obligation disappears, there's another one that seems to follow up right behind it and take its place. And maybe next year, it sounds responsible right up until you realize that you've been saying it for 10 years. There's always going to be maybe next year. And that's just it. Because when you're in my seat and in my shoes, you have a builder's problem, right? The builder's mentality. And it's not just building stuff for construction. I help run the construction company, but I'm thinking of ways that I can build businesses. How can I turn investments into income, passive income? And how can I build a building to lease out? How can I develop the next property, any property at this point? How can I build a ranch on my 6 acres of heaven here? How can I build my family? How can I build my relationships with people or rebuild them? How can I build a reputation that I'm proud of? And hopefully things that will still be here after I'm gone is what I'm putting into place. But to do all that, it takes time. It takes effort. It takes energy. And to take that time, effort, and energy and put it on pause to do something like going on a ride somewhere is hard to do, because I spent a lot, and you've seen it, right? I've spent a lot of this season talking about building and leaving something behind, and I believe in that. Truly, I do. But there is a trap that comes along with being a builder and having that builder mentality, and that is that you become so good at building a life that you forget why you're building it. And I know I'm not the only person who feels that way or has felt that way. And you work hard because you want the freedom, right? You want that freedom that comes with having the finances in place to go do what you want to do, or having the time saved up in vacation time from work to go do what you want to do. Because at that point, what you run into is the work, it almost consumes the freedom. I mean, you get really good at building stuff. You get really good at building your nest egg. You get really good at building the PTO time. I mean, I've talked to people who retire from their jobs and they have months of paid time off that they just haven't used. And I can't help but wonder why. Imagine if you had used that time off that you've accrued and earned while you were younger, while you were more able, while your kids were still at home or around every day in your life. I mean, think about that for a minute. And we save money, right? So that someday we'll be able to enjoy ourselves. And you save. And then the spending, when you start to spend it, it starts feeling irresponsible. Man, I worked so hard to save all that money. And you watch your bank account grow. And there's a satisfaction that comes with that. And then you go spend it, and you're just like, oh, man, should I really have done that? Did I really need to take that vacation? Did I really need to go to that Super Bowl game? Did I really need to do that? And there's a little bit of a guilt that goes with that. For me, I'm in the family business, and I help build the business so that someday I'll have that independence to be able to go. And for the most part, I will say, in the last 5 years or so, it's got better. You know, we'll go on a camping trip, and we'll take off Friday, and we'll actually come home Monday. And I got to tell you, I love that. That is a really sweet spot for us to be able to be gone Friday. We take off Friday morning or Thursday night after work, and then we come home Monday morning after having a full 2 days wherever we're going. And that's a really sweet spot to be. But to do that, I have to convince myself that I can leave the business for a couple days. You know, going up to camp for a week. I've got to convince myself that I can be out of the office for a week. I can do this. They'll be fine. And for the most part, it is. I mean, it's easier now than it was before. We take that one more step, and then here I am. I'm buying a property, right? I'm buying a horse, 2 horses. You know, we got the King's Lair here that we picked up at an auction. And I will say I've tried to be fairly frugal with how I spend my money. But then what happens is you get these things that you work so hard for and that you want to enjoy, but you're too damn busy working to enjoy any of it. And it sucks. The King's Lair has moved out of the parking space one time this year in February. It's August right now. I'm living an example of the show here. But what was the original objective of all of this, right? Was it just to accumulate more stuff? No, hell no. Or was it all this building supposed to create a good life? I mean, that's what we want, right? We want that good life. And I'll tell you, delayed gratification is important. I wouldn't have much of what I have without it. If I just acted on every whim, to buy something, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And I tell it to my kids, and I tell it to guys at work, don't spend everything you make. And for the most part, they're getting pretty good at it. The kids have taken on to that lesson. Work when other people don't want to. I mean, there's some truth to that. When nobody else wants to work and you're the one working, you're the one who's going to get ahead. Sacrifice something today to have something better tomorrow. A lot of truth to that. And then have that 5 or 10 year plan. Have that plan. Have that goal. Where you want to be in 10 years. I've talked about it before here. You've heard me. Where you want to be in 10 years. To get there, what do you got to be in 5? To get to where you want to be in 5, where you got to be in 3. And it keeps on getting smaller and smaller until you realize that today is when you need to be acting. And that's good advice, especially when you're young. Because at 20, somebody probably needs to grab you and say, hey, dumbass, you might want to think about tomorrow. And I'm dealing right now with family stuff. Not necessarily my kids, but family related. And you want to shake them by the shoulders and say, hey, dumbass, when are you going to start thinking about tomorrow? There are consequences for your actions in your 20s. You just don't realize it until you're probably 30 or 40. But there can be an opposite problem later in life. Right? You get really good at postponing things. There's always another milestone to hit. You know, and this is the one that I kind of struggle with sometimes. You know, once we get the business established, the ranch established, you know, once we get the new development kind of rolling along, then we'll be able to do something. Or when the kids get older. I'm not interested in the kids getting older at this point. I'm not really interested in the grandkids growing up and getting older at this point. I want to enjoy them while I'm young enough to enjoy them. And that delayed gratification, that's a virtue. Putting it off a little bit is a virtue, but delayed living is not. There has to be some balance between taking care of tomorrow and actually using today. And don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting here telling you, hey, go drain your retirement account tomorrow so that you can enjoy today. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying to quit your job or stop showing up for work or any of that. And don't go put the new Corvette, $100,000 car on your credit card. Good Lord. That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about abandoning any responsibilities because life is too short. We're simply saying there's more to it, and you have to allow yourself to enjoy it. Because that stuff is not an adventure. That's not what we're talking about. That's not an adventure. That's stupidity. You know, responsibility matters more when people depend on you, which brings this back to the crown. Because it's all part of the kingdom, right? When you're the king, people depend on you. Life is a little bit bigger than just what you've got in your own little bubble. More people get touched, the more responsible you are. For me, I've got my family, my wife, my kids, my grandkids, my dad, my brothers, aunts and uncles who I don't see probably near as much as I should. But they all depend on me. In one way or another, they depend on me. And part of carrying the crown is protecting that kingdom, whatever that kingdom is. Whether it's just your family, like I've got, or the business. Maybe you own a business. Those are your employees, depending on you. The property depends on you. The money in the bank and getting it into the bank depends on you. Your future depends on you. All of it depends on you. And you protect what you've built. And you know what? You should. It's important. But the question that comes with all of that is, what exactly are you protecting it for? Why are you protecting it? If everything you do is designed to protect the life you've built, to protect everybody who depends on you and all the things that depend on you. But you never actually enjoy that life, something's gone wrong. If there's never a reward for all of the work that you put in, something has gone wrong. Because you can build the walls around your kingdom so high that nobody on the inside gets to enjoy it. Least of all you. The king needs to be able to enjoy the fruits of his labors, the fruits of the effort. No matter what it is, you have to allow yourself to be able to enjoy that. And that's why buying the ticket matters. Because the ticket isn't necessarily an airline ticket. It's not a train ticket. It's not some go to a concert ticket. The ticket represents the commitment. The commitment to do something. Before you buy it, you're telling yourself, before you buy the ticket, before you make that commitment, you're telling yourself, we should do that sometime. Or we should go there someday. Or maybe you say, I've always wanted to try that. If it's skydiving, that's not what the king is saying here. Or if it's bungee jumping, no, not into that either. But maybe next summer, we should do the wingsuit flying down the canyon. Now that would be cool. Or maybe we should get everybody together. Maybe we should have a family reunion. And then pretty soon, 6 months has gone by. And then a year goes by. And then it's 3 years. And nothing's happened. And you say the same thing. We should do that. We should go there. And nothing happens. But once you buy the ticket, once you book the room, or you reserve the campsite, you're going, right? Once you sign up for the lesson, or you put down that deposit, you're going. And then you tell everybody, I'm going. And then this thing builds a little bit of momentum. And it's like, all right, this is happening. And then something changes because now you're going. Before you buy that ticket, the adventure has to fit around your calendar. But once you buy the ticket, the calendar has to fit around the adventure. And there are people who are really good at this in their lives. They're really good about making the calendar fit around their adventure. I'm not. But that's the power of that commitment, right? Because once you're going, it turns someday into next week. It turns someday into next Thursday. You're going. And it doesn't need to be some giant bucket list adventure either. Sometimes it's just take a trip. Or just go camping. You know, make that commitment for you, yourself. It's hard to do. But go buy those concert tickets that you've been looking at. Or go try that new hobby. Go try the wingsuit and flying down the canyon, which is one of the most dangerous things that you could do. But if you've ever watched it on those GoPro videos, it's awesome. Or maybe you learn to ride a horse or ski or go fishing. Or you take a road trip somewhere. You know, one of the most fun trips we did was spontaneous trip back to Indiana to bring home the King's Lair trailer. So much fun. Such a good memory. And maybe you take an afternoon off of work and you go on a picnic. Or you say yes when your kid asks you to do something. How many times can we do this? Kids are asked, can we do this? Can we do this? No, I'm too busy. No, I got this. Say yes. Say yes. Try something that you're probably going to suck at, like hosting a podcast. Or record the podcast which will be the 33rd podcast now, even though nobody listens to it. Because some of the best things you ever do will probably look inefficient if you write it down on a spreadsheet. But that's okay. Let it go. Not everything in life needs a return on your investment. Or maybe it does, and you're just measuring the return the wrong way. Because one of the things that you can be damn sure of is as you get older, not every opportunity stays available for you. And you live life where when you're young, got all the time in the world, it seems like, but you never have any money. As you age and get older, that flips. And you no longer have all the time in the world, but you probably got enough money. There's a sweet spot in there when you got both. And once you hit that sweet spot, man, you just want to hang on to those years as long as you can. Because the expiration date usually isn't, I'm going to run out of money. It's that you're going to run out of time. None of us is guaranteed tomorrow. And there are things that you can do with your kids today that won't exist in 10 years. There are things that you can do with your parents today that won't always be possible. I can't tell you how many times I think about that with my mom. I wish I'd just done whatever it was one more time. And she's gone. She's been gone for 15 years. But I still miss those times. As you get older, and I'm living proof of it with the recovery from the quad, which is really doing good, but there's adventures that my body cannot handle today what it used to be able to handle 20 years ago. And I know that in 20 years, my body's not going to be able to handle then what it can handle today. And there's people sitting around our table today, you just heard me say it, that aren't going to be there tomorrow. And when you start looking at things this way, it's not depressing. It's reality. And understanding that should make today more valuable for you, not less. Because some opportunities have expiration dates. Problem with that is nobody prints the date on the ticket. Nobody tells you you can do this until X date. And that's why later, that phrase, I'll do it later, I'll get to it later, deserves a little bit more scrutiny. Because sometimes later is responsible. And sometimes later is just fear or habit or inertia wearing a responsible looking suit. It goes back to the gist of the podcast here. Once in a while, you've got to enjoy the reward for the effort and the time. And make time for you. Because eventually, no matter what you do, someday, the truth will be that somebody else is going to own the buildings that you worked so hard to build. Somebody else is going to own that business that you devoted countless hours to. Somebody else is going to own the land that you're living on now that you call yours. It won't be that way forever. You're going to drive the truck that is yours. Somebody else is going to get whatever stuff you've accumulated. And that's just the nature of life. But there's another part of that legacy that is not tangible. That's the stories that you get to tell. The remember when we did this. Or do you remember that trip to Indiana to get the trailer? Do you remember when Dad decided to take a day off and go camping with us for a weekend? Or when Grandpa had me come over and stay the night with him just to hear a bedtime story? those stories survive in a completely different way. Which begs the question, maybe the legacy isn't just the things we leave behind. Maybe it isn't just what you've built that's the material. Maybe what it is what happened while you were building it. Because building stuff matters. But so does living inside what you've built. Enjoy it while you can enjoy it. Because you never know when you can't, or you won't be able to again. Royal decree for you. Don't postpone every adventure until the kingdom is finished. Because truth be told, the kingdom is never finished. There will always be another project. There's always going to be another bill to pay, another problem, another reason to wait. So protect the kingdom, yes. Build for tomorrow, absolutely. And take care of the people who depend on you. But when the opportunity comes to make a memory of your own with the people that matter, buy that ticket and take that ride. And figure out the rest when you get back, because it's all going to be waiting for you when the adventure is over. Remember, ask yourself this. Are you protecting your life so carefully that you're forgetting to live it? Or maybe the better question is this. What are you waiting for before you give yourself permission to enjoy the life that you're building? Because someday isn't earlier on the calendar. So build something. Protect it. Plan for tomorrow. But every once in a while, like I said, buy that damn ticket and enjoy the ride. I am King Roberto, coming to you from the King's Lair. Hope you've enjoyed the podcast. If you liked it, share it with somebody. Hit the like button. Help me build this thing up, because it's listeners like you who make it possible. If you want to tell me about it, how much you liked it, or maybe you're on the other side and you think it sucked, send me an email, DM, hit me on X, Twitter, whatever it is, or Instagram. Love to hear from you. And until then, I'll see you, or I'll talk to you again. Goodbye.